Hello everyone. So, today I wish to speak with you about how to use session and session tracking with session configuration. What is a session? The time interval in which two systems communicate with each other can be termed as a session. Simpler terms, a session is a state consisting of several requests and response between the client and the server. It is a known fact that HTTP and web servers are both stateless, since the only way to maintain the state of the user is by making use of technologies that implement session tracking. Session tracking in servlet can be implemented by a number of methods, cookies being one of them. However, they have multiple disadvantages. Only textual information can be kept by them. If cookies are disabled by a user, the web application is unable to make use of them. Not more than 4 kilobytes of data can be contained by a single cookie. Another way to implement session tracking is by creating sessions with unique session IDs for every user in a Java servlet. How does session work? What is session tracking? When a series of requests from the same user, requests coming from the same browser, occurs over an extended period of time, servlets employ a mechanism known as session tracking to maintain a state about the request. Each servlet that a client accesses uses a shared session. By employing the stateless HTTP protocol, each time a client requested a web page, a new connection is made to the web server, which does not keep notes of previous requests. A session is the period of time during which a user conversion is often referred to a specific amount of time. The practice of recognizing and documenting customer conversion over time is known as session tracking. Managing session is another name for it. The recording of the item in session is called tracking. An online application that remembers and keeps track of client conversion over time is called a stateful web application. Why is it required to track sessions? Due to statelessness of this HTTP protocol, users require session tracking to make the client-server relationship stateful. Since the HTTP protocol has no state, every request is assumed to be a fresh one. Session tracking is crucial to track conversion in e-commerce, mailing, and online shopping apps. Session tracking uses 4 distinct methods: cookies, hidden form field, URL rewriting, and HTTP session. Cookies. Cookies are little data packets that the web server delivers in the response headers and that the browser stores. A web server can provide each web client with their unique session ID. Cookies are used to keep the session running smoothly. A cookie is a small piece of information that is present between the multiple client requests. A cookie has a name, a single value, and optional attributes such as a comment, path and domain qualifiers, a maximum age, and a version number. Cookies are used to storing client state. Cookies are the textual information that is stored in key-value pair format to the client browser during multiple requests. It is one of the state management techniques in session tracking. Basically, the server treats every client request as a new one, so to avoid this situation, cookies are used. When the client generates a request, the server gives the response with cookies having an ID, which are then stored in the client browser. If client generates a second request, a cookie with the matched ID is also sent to the server. The server will fetch the cookie ID. If found, it will treat it as an old request, otherwise the request is considered new. How cookies works? This is an example for cookies. Methods in cookies: clone, get comment, get domain, get max age, get name, get path, get secure, get value, get version, get value, string name value, get version, like that. So let me discuss one by one. Clone method: override the standard Java language object clone method to return a copy of this cookie. Get comment: return the comment describing the purpose of this cookie or null if the cookie has no comment. Get domain: gets the domain name of this cookie. Get max age: gets the maximum age in second of this cookie. Get name: return the name of the cookie. Get path: returns the path on the server to which the browser returned this cookie. Get secure: return true if the browser is sending cookies only over secure protocol, or false if the browser can send cookies using any protocol. Get value method: gets the current value of this cookie. Get version: returns the version of the protocol this cookie complies with. Set value method: assign a new value of this cookie. Set version: sets the version of the cookie protocol that this cookie compiles with. URL rewriting: add more information as request parameters via the URL to each request and response to keep session management and browser activity in syntax. URL rewriting is a superior method. As we saw in last session, that we can manage a session with HTTP session, but if we disable the cookies in browser, it won't work because server will not receive the JSession ID cookie from client. Servlet API provides support for URL rewriting that we can use to manage session in this case. The best part is that from coding point of view, it's very easy to use and involve one step, encoding the URL. Another good thing with Servlet URL encoding is that it's a fallback approach and it kicks in only if browser cookies are disabled. We can encode URL with HTTP Servlet Response Encode URL method. Hidden from field: the data is entered into the web pages and sent to the server through a hidden from field. These fields are not visible to users. In case of hidden from field, a hidden text field is used for maintaining the state of an user. In such case, we store the information in the hidden field and get it from another servlet. This approach is better if we have to submit from in all the pages and we don't want to depend on the browser. Let's see the code to store value in hidden field. Uname is the hidden field from and Vimal Jaiswal is the hidden field value. It is widely used in comment from a website. In such case, we store pages ID or pages name in the hidden field so that each page can be uniquely identified. Advantages of hidden from field: it will always work whether cookies is disabled or not. Disadvantages of hidden from field: it is maintained at server side. Extra font submission is required on each pages. Only textual information can be used. HTTP session: an illustration of a user session is the HTTP session object. A user session is a grouping of user data spread across numerous HTTP requests. Servlet API provides session management through HTTP session interface. We can get session from HTTP servlet request object using following method. HTTP session allows us to set object as attribute that can be retrieved in future requests. HTTP session get session. This method always returns a HTTP session object. It returns the session object attached with the request. If the request has no session attached, then it creates a new session and returns it. Second one, HTTP session get session boolean flag. This method returns HTTP session object if request has session, else it returns null. This is a small video for session. Public HTTP session get session gets the HTTP session object if the request doesn't have a session associated with it. A new session is created. Public HTTP session get session boolean create. Get the session associated with the request if not already present. Then a new one is created based on the value of the boolean argument passed into it. Public string get ID returns the unique session ID. Public long get creation time. If return the time when this session was created, measured in milliseconds since midnight January 1st, 1970. Public long get last accessed ID if return the time when this session was last accessed, measured in milliseconds since midnight January 1st, 1970. Public long get last access time. It returns the time when the session was last accessed, measured in milliseconds since midnight January 1st, 1970. Public void invalidates the session. What is JSession ID in JSP servlet? JSC session ID is the cookies generated by servlet containers like Tomcat or Jetty and used for session management in the J2EE web application for HTTP protocol. Since HTTP is a stateless protocol, there is no way for web server to relate to separate requests coming from the same client, and session management is the process to track user session using different session management techniques like cookies and URL rewriting. If a web server is using the cookies for session management, it creates and sends JSession ID cookie to the client, and then the client sends it back to the server in subsequent HTTP request. Advantages of HTTP session in servlet. Any kind of object can be stored into a session, be it a text, database, dataset, etc. Usage of session is not dependent on the client's browser. Sessions are secure and transparent. Disadvantages of HTTP session. Performance overhead due to session object being stored on server. Overhead due to serialization and deserialization of data. Session configuration. The time out of all HTTP sessions can be configured in the web.xml of the web application. Thank you for watching.